on enhancements. And I know that you know, most of you probably aren't even on PDM 2020 yet, so we'll cover some of the stuff of what's new in 21 and what's good from 2020, as those upgrade projects tend to take a bit of effort on behalf of our customers. So I know not everyone is on the bleeding edge when it comes to data management upgrades. So we'll cover some of the old stuff that is really useful, some of the new stuff, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions. So feel free to throw your questions in the chat or in the Q&A section, and I'll look over occasionally and see what I need to catch up on. So here we go. We are really going to be talking about the two data management tools from SOLIDWORKS, SOLIDWORKS PDM and SOLIDWORKS Manage. And as a little preview of some of the things we're going to talk about today, in the PDM, for the first time in a long time, we've gone and updated the UI a little bit. We've stayed remarkably consistent with kind of the look and feel and how you interact with things in PDM. So not a major overhaul, just some minor updates to better integrate with Windows Explorer and get the commands that you use easily accessible for you. But that is the first effort that we put into the UI in a little bit here. Then we'll also take a look at some of the enhancements to the bills of materials, specifically the computed BOM or the CAD BOM coming out of SOLIDWORKS. So we'll see what enhancements we've got there in terms of how it recognizes components and some things that previously weren't part of that BOM that now have found a home there. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the behind the scenes stuff. Performance is a big focus, performance and stability when it comes to our data management. So we'll take a look at some of the projects that the developers have been working on to increase the performance usability of the user experience. And then we'll flip over to SOLIDWORKS Manage, where a lot of effort has been put into projects and tasks, and specifically the interaction between projects and tasks. So we'll take a look at that and a couple of other usability items around tasks. We'll look at bills of materials in Manage. Okay, the bill of material in Manage is more than just that CAD bill of materials that's coming out of SOLIDWORKS and being reported in PDM. So we'll take a look at some tools to reorder items and make editing those bills of materials a little bit easier, a little bit more convenient for the end users. And then probably one of my favorite new capabilities when it comes to data management, and really one that's appropriate for most people's working situations today, is our ability to interact with Manage via the web. It has a pretty full featured web client interface, and brand new for 2021, our ability to share our data outside of our system. So share it with external users via the web. So we'll take a look at how that works and what we can do with that. And then we'll wrap it up with a few other client enhancements, client types, and things like that. So we'll jump straight in to the UI for PDM. And my first task, whenever I'm showing people PDM for the first time or reminding them that it exists, my first task is always to convince you that this is just Windows Explorer, right? It's not scary. So we've got our Windows Explorer ribbon here, and I can change my view style to lists or icons or thumbnails or whatever the case may be. Right, I prefer the details view myself. Oh, and there we go. Details view, there we go. I prefer the details view. Not only do we get information like file name, file size, and last modified date, but we can see who has files checked out, what types of documents they are, things like that. Now, you already know that we've got the ability to add any custom properties, any metadata into these columns that we want. We've done that through a column set. So if we wanted to take description and part number and other pieces of metadata or custom properties that are shown on our data card and put them into columns, we could do that. But it was the same column set for everybody, and that was kind of your global preference there. Now we've got more columns than we know what to do with. So I can right click in the white space, and you can see I've defined several different sets of metadata to display in the UI, and I've given the user the option to choose which layout they like the best. You know, if I look at the beginner is what I happen to call it. It's just file name, workflow state, part numbers, and descriptions. I can change it instead to, you know, intermediate or advanced, or however I want these laid out. I can have multiple selections that I toggle back and forth between depending on what I'm doing and what information I need access to. So let's jump over to the administration tool and see how we define these column sets. So as you might expect, we've got the columns tab here. And if we expand that out, all of a sudden, we've got a lot of different options here. There didn't used to be this many options. What we were doing right there was our file list columns, my beginner, advanced, intermediate. If I open one of these up, it's much like building out the column set in a bill of material or what we've done in the past, where I can select a variable value, give it an alias and a default width, and add it to my list here. I can also assign permissions as to what users or groups have access to this file list, and then which one is preferred, so we can help the users with their selections around every turn, and you know, suggest a column set that may be appropriate for certain groups or things like that. So pretty familiar interface, or somewhat familiar interface, in terms of how we have this, you know, how we can define these sets of metadata for columns. But what you'll notice here, this is our file list. That's the details view in Windows Explorer. I can define my columns wherever I want. Okay, so not just in my details view, I can also define them in the contains and where used tabs, which have previously been untouchable. Right, we get the file name, version of reference, you know, workflow state. You could turn a few of them on and off, but I can completely define the column sets for contains, for where used, for any of the reference dialog box that are going to pop up. So my check-in and check-out dialog boxes, the change state dialog box, the get version dialog box, all of these things. I can completely define a set of columns and give folks permission to use them and access them. So metadata is everywhere at our fingertips. There's no excuse for not being in the know here. The other thing that we'll see here is the quick search results. And if you're not running on 2020 yet, you might ask yourself, what in the heck is a quick search? Jumping back into Windows Explorer, we talked a little bit about, you know, kind of the streamlined interface here plays a little bit nicer with Windows 10 and our scaling factors and things like that. Our actions bar has been condensed down, so we've still got our icons for check in, check out, get version, things like that. We can turn them on and off, but it's compact, it's modern, it's streamlined. I can hide my office ribbon and claim back some more real estate for my applications, which I always love doing. But over here, in what used to be the integrated search that only searched your locally cached files, right? Because this was just the Windows Explorer search bar. Well, we've hijacked that or integrated with it, however you want to view that. And this is actually a configurable PDM search now. I can specify as an administrator what variable values or fields that it searches on, current folder, subfolder, or all folders. Again, you can make all of these changes, on the fly. And if I start typing in part number, run my search, it's giving me my search results. And again, I can pick whatever column sets I have defined here. So straight from this quick search, it's saving me a few mouse clicks. I don't have to launch my, my search tool and make some selections. I know my part number, I know the description value or things like that. I can do my quick search here and search the entire vault. From these results, as you'd expect, I can right click and have my full PDM menu. So check in, check out, change state, move it, rename it, whatever the case may be, we can do from our right click menu or look at contains, where used, preview information, all from this quick search. Also new back in 2020, we introduced the ability to use logical operators in our searches. So we can define and conditions or not conditions using the and sign, the pipe character, or an exclamation point. And previously, if you had ever put in multiple conditions, it would treat those as an or. It'll return either hits on either search term. Now, using some syntax, we can get very specific with our searches and do some logical operators in line while we're searching. So that's pretty cool there. Some of the other UI updates here, I'll jump back into the administration tool and we'll take a look at our workflows. It's been several years since we've done an icon refresh, but we've got new icons. Yay. Why does anyone care, right? Well, first of all, we have a huge library of icons now. Okay, so way more than the dozen or so icons, 3 of which were a stoplight that we had in the past. And the reason that this is important is because it helps us graphically or visually guide our users through their workflow. Okay, you may notice or remember that if you're in a state, when you right click on a file and do a change state, you see the graphic of the destination state. Okay, again, giving users visual clues to help them get their files through the processes and make the right selections. So an expanded icon library is there for user convenience that we can use in our workflows. I think the last thing I want to show us, or 1 or 2 more things through the user interface here, is we're familiar with contains and where used. Maybe I'll look at one of the higher level assemblies, just right click and browse through there. One thing to note through the contains and where used, we do have the full file right click. So I can check things out. I can change the state. I can interact with my files directly from the contains or where used fields. I can do more than just browsing to those files from there, using it as a navigation tool. But we're familiar with the contains tab. It kind of gives us the Bill of Materials-esque look and feel of an indented product structure. But we now have what we call the Treehouse View. So if you hover over the view in the right-hand corner here, select Treehouse. Treehouse started its life several years ago in the SOLIDWORKS labs as somebody's pet project, and it's a graphical representation of your product structure. A lot of people really loved this. It was kind of an underground tool for a while, but the PDM developers have taken that on and brought it into the contains and where used tab. I'll go full screen here and zoom in a bit. We can zoom and pan and do all those things. There's a few options in terms of changing the type of layout that we're viewing and whatnot. From here, not only can I print this out, as a PDF or hang it up in my cube or whatnot, but I can also interact with my files here. If I do a multi-select, I can right-click and do a change state, check in, check out, whatever I need to do, both on the contain side and on the where used side. So let's say, for example, maybe I'll grab one of these subcomponents here, and I will browse to it. Well, maybe not. Let me I'll just grab any one of these. This looks good. And normally, if I was going to make a change to this particular component, I would first take a look at the where used and kind of make a mental note. These are all the assemblies or drawings or other documentation that I need to check that may be affected by my change. If I come in here to the Treehouse view, what I can do is I can export this list into Excel, Excel being my favorite tool for all data manipulation. But it gives me this great list with thumbnails. This is effectively my checklist that I got to go through and check each of these particular files or assemblies or drawings or whatnot. We can export that data with or without thumbnails. Thumbnails are always convenient when maybe you don't know your part numbers by heart. So again, we can export contains or where used, open it up in Excel with thumbnails. Treehouse View is certainly one of my favorite enhancements for 2021. The last thing that might be convenient for you, especially if you use a replicated environment in PDM where you travel back and forth between locations where you have replicated servers. We've got the little login man up here where our search bars typically are. And we can log out from here. That's great. We've now got this about menu option here. And this actually tells us what archive server we're connected to and what database we're connected to. So this can be a great tool for troubleshooting things. If you don't know what archive you're connected to, or if our support team needs to know what archive you're connected to, you don't have to hunt through the registry and try and find it yourself. You can just hit About PDM and it'll tell you what you're connected to, which is pretty convenient there. All right, so as far as the UI is concerned, we talked about new modern icons that help your users better navigate their workflow. We talked about a better integration into Windows Explorer, where we've got kind of more streamlined capabilities there. And we talked about custom column sets everywhere. The details view, contains tab, where used, check in, check out dialog boxes, search results, all the place where we have a list of files, we can define the metadata that shows up next to them, which is really convenient. And then we also talked about Treehouse, which has been very popular for the folks that know that it exists. We will we'll change courses a little bit here, and we'll talk about bills of material. So I think I have some of these files open here. One of the first things that we'll notice, if I go to the bill of material tab, take the assembly actually. If I look at my CAD BOM, this is my computed bill of materials. You'll notice there's some interesting items here in the bill of material list. These are my weldment cut list items. They've graduated and become recognized as part of the CAD bill of material as legitimate components of our assembly. So I still have, if I go back to the individual part level, I still have that weldment BOM and weldment cut list in PDM that I can define, because there is a need for those, and we can export those. But we can also have that visibility direct in the CAD BOM of the cut list items. So our computed BOM, where we don't have to take steps to manually update those or things like that. It's just visible direct in our faces all the time, which is great. The other major improvement for our CAD bill of material, where did my SOLIDWORKS screen go? Here we go, graphics are catching up. Is if we look at our configurations and we go through our component properties, right? We've got options to use these in bill of materials, and for those children items, do we show them? Do we hide them? Do we promote them up to the next level in the bill of material? All of those selections are now respected in our computed bill of material. So it's no longer just that exclude from BOM flag in an assembly, but at the configuration level, whether we show, hide, or promote items to the next level in a bill of material, that is respected by the computed BOMs as well, giving us a better picture of our CAD structure, as it comes out of SOLIDWORKS. We're putting all this effort into defining these things at the component level, at the assembly level. PDM system should be aware of those and reflect that data accordingly, which it does now. Not just limited to cut list items, but we also treat derived parts, mirrored parts, 3D interconnect data. All of that shows up in the bill of material as actual components now in our computed BOM, which is awesome. So bills of materials, we talked about weldments and cut lists being legitimate items in our computed BOM, derived parts as well, and then the component display properties also being recognized and respected. When it comes to performance, this is not something that will easily show, but last year in 2020, one of the big focuses was on asynchronous folder navigation. So as you browse through a folder, you didn't have to wait for the entire contents of that folder to load before you started interacting with data in that folder. So that was a huge improvement, especially if you had a large number of files in your folders makes those usable. You're not kind of locking up Windows Explorer waiting for the whole folder to refresh. So building on top of that, this year there were some specific projects that looked at destroying files, which historically has been very computationally intense in or computationally expensive in PDM. Adding files is now 1.5 to 3 times faster. The reference dialog display, so that's check in, check out, change state, things like that. Reference dialog display has had huge improvements in how quick that information is returned to the user, and that helps contribute up to 25% time savings in actually performing the check-in and doing state change activities and things like that. And then copy tree has been another area of focus, interacting with that long list of items in a copy tree dialog box when you're doing your renames or adding suffixes or deciding what to include or exclude. Again, I mentioned large numbers of files in a folder. That was a project from 2020. And then as well, better handling of large assemblies that have a lot of first level children. We've traditionally made kind of the recommendation to have kind of as few components as possible at each level of an assembly, but we're working on things to better handle those situations and give you the flexibility to design the way you want. So switching gears a little bit, we will talk about Manage now. Actually, before I do that, I will check on the chat and the Q&A. Let's see. With Treehouse, the issue, printouts of large assemblies make the icons and text too small to see. Can the PDFs be printed on multiple sheets? So yes, I've seen customers that have huge, C-sized, D-sized prints across multiple sheets pinned up in their cubes. So you can get a high fidelity PDF out of that and then just print it across multiple sheets. So yeah, I know for big assemblies, it's a lot of zooming in, zooming out, trying to find what you want. So you can blow that up and print it across multiple sheets, no problem. Let's see. I think that's the only one so far. So keep your questions coming in the chat and the Q&A, and I'll keep checking in on those things. So we'll switch gears to SOLIDWORKS Manage. I know that this may be the first look at SOLIDWORKS Manage for a lot of folks on the session here. SOLIDWORKS Manage really expands on the data management capabilities of PDM. PDM is still the file management engine underneath, so Manage sits on top of that and adds task assignment, it adds project management, it adds item management, and most importantly, that's kind of true bill of material management, and then some dashboarding and reporting on top of that. So we'll see a little bit of all of those things here this afternoon while we focus in on the things that are new inside of SOLIDWORKS Manage. So we'll start with projects. A lot of effort has gone into projects over the last couple of releases, and when we look at things from kind of a project manager perspective, there's oftentimes a need to evaluate multiple projects at the same time, kind of look at your overall resources and things like this. And I can open up each of my projects individually or kind of look at the schedule and resource allocation of each one individually, but that doesn't kind of give me the overall scope of the project. So one of the things that we've been able to do, if I multi-select these items, I can go into project planning, and it puts both of those projects in a collection and overlays them. I can open these up and drill down to whatever level of detail that I need. But now I've got both projects or multiple projects here available to me. But previously, this would only live for that point in time that I was working on it, and as I would close it, it would be gone forever, and I'd have to remember the projects that I wanted to select the next time. So what we can do now is we've got what's called the project planning list. So I'll go ahead and create a new project planning list right now in my project planning. If I hit save, I'll give it a name. I'll call this inspection projects, and I'll save that. So now, if I'm in my project planning view, I can just say open, and I've got some miter saw projects, some inspection projects, and I don't have to remember what those projects were. Okay, they're persistent. I can also come in here, and let's say I want to add an additional project to that list. Right, this is my a new project, and same project manager. I can just right-click, add it to the project planning list. I'll choose my inspection projects, and now I've got all three. Oops, I didn't choose to open it there. There was an option here, open the project planning list. Yep. And so now I've got all three projects stacked for my review. So again, great 10,000 foot views of our projects, and allow us to better manage our resources across multiple projects. Now, if we look at any individual project, okay, I'll open it up. Again, I like that planning view. It's pretty convenient. We still have access to all of the data we need. We've got tasks that are defined for each of these stages, and if my tasks are completed or ahead of schedule or behind schedule, that can impact the overall project schedule. Now, typically, it's been the responsibility, of a project manager to kind of monitor these tasks and update the schedule accordingly, doing some manual refreshes. Right, you can come in here and say update progress according to tasks, and that's all fine and good for the project manager. But now we have a background service that will actually just work on whatever sort of an interval we define, every 5 minutes, every 30 minutes, whatever the case may be, and it'll poll all of the tasks, and as they get completed, it'll update the schedule for us accordingly, and it will also take any of the attachments in a completed task and automatically move them into the project deliverables. So again, just streamlining some processes, eliminating steps for users when we can have a background service be managing this for us. So a bit of task automation here as we mark things completed, and it gets in that queue for updating the schedule and moving things over to deliverables. We also have some new out-of-the-box charts for our tasks, so we can look at our task burn down both on a project basis and on an individual basis. So we have these same out-of-the-box charts available to us, not only for projects but personal tasks. I'll show you where we get to those, and then similarly, in fact, I'll go to my home screen. If I look at my tasks, these are everything that's assigned to me. I have that same personal task burn down that I can review here. I can also access my task board. Okay, so the task board is a list of all of my tasks, but I can now group those by status, if we're looking at a project, we can group them by stage, or we can group them by priority. And I can reprioritize, I can change priorities, I can interact with my tasks through these task boards directly. So again, just giving us options for how we want to visualize and interact with our data for each of the individual task assignments. You can open up a task, again, still interact with it, change the priority here, change the status here, or use a drag and drop method through your task board. All right, so we covered project planning lists, task services. We talked about some of the out-of-the-box charts and task boards. And then let's see, I want to talk about sharing files. Okay, so if you haven't seen the web interface for SOLIDWORKS Manage, it's really a good, pretty fully capable web interface. So what you'll see here is I've got the same types of objects available to me. So if we go to our, we can go to our projects or our processes. We can look at our documents and expand out our vault. Oops. Gotta get it to refresh. Once we have an item selected in the drop screen here, we do have access to all of its properties, to its bill of materials if it happens to have one. We've got our right-click menus where we can send them through processes. We can check in, we can check out. We get our previews here as well. And then we can take this data and actually we get a thumbnail preview through Manage, but we can connect it up to our PDM web interface as well. If you haven't seen the PDM web interface, specifically the preview capabilities, we've moved to a WebGL based viewer where I have to log in. I sat idle for too long. Just come back to this here. So we've moved to a WebGL based viewer, so no reliance on Internet Explorer, no reliance on ActiveX plugins or things like this. It just works on any browser, on any device, and it's a really smooth preview. You can rotate, you can zoom, you can take section views, on any plane. It's very responsive, pretty good, pretty good interaction. You can snap to, the various views that you have defined in the model itself. So again, responsive previewing on any device without an install. One of the other things that the web clients allow for us, or the capabilities that it gives us, if I come back into SOLIDWORKS Manage here, if I look at one of my components here, and in fact, I'll pick an assembly, I have a right-click share option now. Okay, the share option is going to generate a link for me. It can either automatically be emailed out, or I can copy and paste the link. We do have the option to password protect this, or have that link expire, say in a week or in 30 days or things like that, so that we don't just publish this information out there forever. Since I have a assembly selected, I'll want to grab my reference files as well. The assembly is generally useless without its assembly files. I'll copy that, and if I paste this into a web browser, take a moment for me to connect here. Oops, I put a password on it and I have no idea what my password is. Let me generate a new link real quick. Share, copy the link, include my reference files. All right, we'll go with this one here. So what it's done is it's taken that assembly, it's zipped it up with its components, and I can send this to external users or users inside the organization that maybe don't have a managed client or PDM client. But again, it makes for that easy transfer of data, the easy sharing of data outside of your organization to aid with collaboration and contract manufacturing, customer input, you name it. Getting data in the hands of external users has always been a big request for a lot of folks. Bills of materials. I almost forgot our bills of materials here. So if we come into our BOMs, our bills of materials are more than just CAD components. So here's one that has both CAD and non-CAD items. I'll go ahead and just open up this record. If we're gonna modify it, it obviously needs to be checked out, which I've done already. If I go to the Bill of Materials tab, click the Edit button here, and now I've got the ability to add or remove or reorder the items in this, finished goods bill of material. For our CAD objects, it automatically understands the CAD references here. But one of the things that we can do, I can add and change any items at this level, but I can't, I don't have a good mechanism to do that at a lower level. I couldn't change these component values without, writing down this part number, searching for it, and, going and modifying it. What I can do from inside my bill of material tool now is I can have this option open BOM in new window. And this, you'll notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the subcomponents of that item that I right-clicked on. And I do have the ability to edit these here directly and have those update or reflect back in the bill of materials that I was editing. So I can split out these BOMs, and I can do this as many levels deep as I need to. This is just a single component, so it doesn't have any bill of material of its own, but I can keep doing this through the trail to, again, just make it convenient to edit these bill of material values. The other thing that I can do, again, without leaving my bill of material interface here, is I can come in and actually create brand new records. So I can go back and create a new record, from my library or PDM or whatnot. I can use new or new from. That's similar to copy tree capability in PDM, if you're familiar with that. So I don't have to go back to my PDM object, create the record here, then come back and modify this bill of material to add the new item in. It can all be done, kind of directly through the window here. Bill of material comparisons. Okay, we've got the ability to compare bills of material in PDM. Again, our CAD bills of materials, and much like you'd expect, I can compare, to an earlier version or revision of itself. I can compare between two BOM variants, and I can compare the views between those. And that's all well and good and what you might expect. I don't know that I have much of a difference here from A, B to C. It's all happens to be all the same. But where this gets really interesting is I can actually compare the bills of materials between two different part numbers. So I'm not limited to just changing my revision value. I can come out here and say, how does this compare to a different part number entirely? And these ones happen to be completely different, but we get some conditional highlighting that shows items that have been added, modified, or removed. And of course, we can open this up in Excel. Just give it a fake name real quick. And it exports that bill of material comparison exactly as it's shown on the screen. So I actually get 3 sheets in here, one with the comparison, one with just the first bill of material item, and one with just the second bill of material item. The other thing that you'll notice is we have these images in here. So again, Manage is bringing over all of that data into Excel for us. If the images get in the way or they're of low value to you, we do have the drop list here. Ignore the icons. That'll just give us the text. Again, it's still formatted with the font styling and the highlighting and things like that. You just don't have those images that get in the way if you don't need them. So you got options there for bills of material. And then in terms of the client interface itself, we've made it pretty easy to navigate through. All of the records in Manage are interconnected. So if I select a component and I can look at its where used and see bills of materials or projects or things like that. If I come to a project, or rather a process that has some items in it, no problem, and I can come here and I can open the record or browse to it, if you will. And I've kind of been jumping all around as I navigate my my records here. We do have the back and forward button, so it remembers where I've been throughout my work. And if I was previously just looking at the process record that contained this as an affected item, no problem. Back and forward recognize that, almost like our web browser. So as long as we've got a continuous string of thought in terms of our navigation, we can use these back and forward buttons to get to the data we were just looking at, which happens to be pretty convenient. And I'm not sure if we've got any managed customers on the session with us right now, but if we do, new for 2021, I can have multiple windows open at the same time, which is a huge deal. There's no one active focus window anymore. I can have as many records open. I can have processes and records open, side by side and switch back and forth between them. I know it's a silly thing to get excited about, but this is the type of stuff that we nerd out about. And if you've been using the software and could only work in one window at a time, this is a pretty big deal. I think the last thing that I want to highlight here before we head back to the chat and open it up for some questions is the dashboards. Okay, so we've got dashboards available to us. Dashboards give us a real-time reporting of data. So unlike a report, which is kind of static and created at a given point in time, these dashboards are live. They're pulling in data from the system and giving me kind of a live status in real time. The really interesting thing about these dashboards, though, is I'm not limited to creating them just based on information that SOLIDWORKS Manage is handling or maintaining or is aware about. I can actually connect these to other data sources or pull in data from other databases, other files, things like this. This dashboard here happens to not be connected to Manage in any way, and it's actually just pulling information from a database query in PDM to give me some state aging information or things like that. So Manage, through our dashboarding engine, can report on things that Manage isn't even controlling or aware of. And that's convenient for me as an end user, and I've got my kind of my normal work to do, checking in and out files, working with bills of material and whatnot. But we have a client, a new client type here. I'll browse down to it. It's called the Manage Dashboard Viewer. It does consume a license when you log in, but this is effectively a stripped down client that is giving you access to dashboards and only to dashboards. So this is great for conference rooms or wall boards or kind of a wall board on the shop floor where you want this data to be live and refreshed. Live. We can configure our refresh interval here. Go ahead and launch it. There we go. But we don't risk giving anyone access to the full client. So you can't check in and out items. You can't go, dig into a bill of material or create a link to go share something or whatever the case may be. It's just a live dashboard that's going to refresh on our, a periodic refresh. So it'll get updated with whatever information happens to be current. So this dashboard viewer client type is brand new for 2021 and available to be installed with or without kind of the full client access. So we talked about bills of materials, editing them, comparing them, moving things around at the current level and lower levels. We talked about creating links to share things via the web and give external users the ability to download items. We talked about multiple windows and dashboard specific clients. So I think that covers most of what I wanted to talk about here. I'll go ahead and open it up for questions right now. So we've got your data under control, SOLIDWORKS PDM and Manage 2021. My email's there on the screen for any additional questions that you may come up with after we move on to Tony's session here to wrap us up for the afternoon. But I'll hit the chat here. Alex would like to see an in-depth review of show, hide, and promote for the configuration properties and how they affect bombs and balloons. Sometimes those can be confusing. Awesome idea. If you were on before we started, Dina and I were chatting about our YouTube channel and some of the content that we have there. I will put this on the list of content for the team, and we'll have someone make some more detailed content, video or blog post going into this in detail, and then happy to send that link to you directly as it gets published. So thanks for the suggestion on the content there. Some questions on the web interface. Is the web interface new for 2021 or does it exist in 2020? Web interface exists in 2020. So that's not a new thing. It's just a very underutilized thing. So if you've got 2020 installed, you do have access to that web interface. Set it up through IIS. That's something we can work with your IT team to help set up and configure for you. But those web interfaces do exist in 2020 as well. Is the file sharing stuff only in PDM, in Manage, or in both? And is that new for 2021? So the file sharing is for any files, whether they be PDM files or document objects in Manage. So that is a capability of SOLIDWORKS Manage, and it does function through the Manage web services. So it's not available in PDM by itself. at least today. Function only for Manage, and that is new in 2021. It did not exist in 2020. So file sharing only in Manage, only for 2021. I don't see anything else in the Q&A.
Neither do I.
All right.
Thank you, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you. Amazing, amazing webinar. Also, I'm sending you that chat in an email so you have it in your email.
Perfect. We'll get to work on some new content for you guys.
You got it. Thanks so much, Jeff. You have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, guys. Enjoy Tony's presentation on working with mesh data inside of SOLIDWORKS and repairing your mesh files. So that'll wrap it up for the season. Yay, 2021.
Yeah.